Good evening, everybody. Welcome to CW Live. My name is Chris Webb, Head of Communications. The man on your screen you'll know is Davie Robertson, National Officer. Evening, Davie.
Evening, Chris.
Good to have you with us, buddy. So our session tonight is similar to the one we've just done with Carl Maiden, is specifically based on our Parcelforce members. You'd have heard me say, if you tuned into the other one, that we'll get an update on the overall talks at ACAS and stuff, where David and the other officers are at some point later in the week. We wanted, though, to come out and to engage with you as Parcelforce members, to take your questions. Davie really critically to set out exactly where we are, but most importantly for you to let us know, what's concerning you, what you've heard, what you want answers on, and hopefully we can get through all of that in the next 45 minutes to an hour and just see how we get along. So, Davie, if I can, with members, if you can let us know where you're watching from, I'll get those up on screen so I can already see dozens of those filing in. We've got 1,400 people watching across YouTube, Facebook and Twitter as well, so that's fantastic. You can help us. Please put tag your mates, share the link, get everyone online. Let's have a biggest possible audience for the session tonight. Whilst you do all of that and you think up your questions, I'm going to ask Davie to give an opening salvo and just set the scene for the session. Over to you, mate.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. And it is important that we have sessions like this. I know we certainly picked up last week in the sort of furore of the start of last week when Royal Mail Group, and this is where it gets a bit confusing, when we met Royal Mail Group at ACAS, and they made what they viewed as a revised pay offer or pay and change offer. Interestingly, in the talks on that day, they said it didn't apply to Parcelforce or Fleet, which I'll come back to. What then became evident is that Parcelforce immediately put out comms saying not only did the Royal Mail offer not apply to them, that they didn't intend to make a further offer and pay, which hadn't necessarily been made clear in the room, but was clearly an unacceptable development. But what we picked up on, and I think the GS, Andy, as acting DGS last week, picked up on, is that in our reaction to that and laying out how the union intended to address the Royal Mail offer or the Royal Mail Group position, including Parcelforce, maybe something got lost in translation. It was felt that it was a Royal Mail centric position, and that Parcelforce and maybe Fleet, which was the other major absentee from the offer, had been left behind. And we felt it's absolutely crucial that you as Parcelforce members, I'd imagine the majority of those watching tonight are Parcelforce members, it was absolutely crucial that you understand that that's not the case. That actually we've been prosecuting what has been, since day one, a group-wide dispute, that any resolution on pay and on change will have to include, acceptable settlements in every part of the business, and there's no circumstances where the union would seek to resolve the position in Royal Mail and leave any business unit left on the battlefield. It's just not going to happen. So it's important that we have the session tonight, Chris. It's important that we maybe get a chance to talk in a wee bit more detail about Parcelforce, because it's very easy, and you'll understand, Chris, when you are dealing with the group-wide issues, whether that's the GS, whether it was Terry, whether it was Andy, whether it's us as officers, it's very difficult to do a deep dive into detail on any part of the business. And it's also true to say that even when we're dealing with the Royal Mail Group, we don't tend to go into a deep dive on delivery or processing or distribution either. But we do listen to what people say. So tonight's an opportunity to just talk about what's different in Parcelforce, what the attacks and the other attacks are in Parcelforce, and why the current Parcelforce position is so extremely unacceptable. So, happy to take questions and let's work through the issues.
Spot on, Davie. So you can see the members filing in, both acknowledging the opening statement, also with their own questions. So first one, Thomas is saying that there's one-to-ones taking place in Parcelforce. Managers are saying we are having them. Can we say no to those?
Well, yeah, absolutely, and you can, and we would encourage you to do so. as you're aware, and this maybe opens up a wider debate, you will be aware, hopefully, that late last week, on Friday of last week, there was a joint statement achieved, which reinvigorated talks at ACAS, and I've been at ACAS all day today, and came back across to do this session, and that joint statement spoke about de-escalation, and spoke about how we created a period of calm to allow the ACAS talks to develop. Now, I'm not going to sit here today of all days and say that that's been an uproarious success. I think it'd be fair to say that there has been some significant difficulties in Royal Mail with regards to the position that management have taken, and the fact that they possibly haven't rowed, well, they definitely haven't rowed back as far as they should have to create that period of calm. And obviously that's unfortunately, that's something that's becoming a talking point in and of itself at ACAS. But with regards to Parcelforce, because that joint statement did cover Parcelforce. So what the joint statement said is that the letter that went to Dave Ward and Andy Fury last week from Stuart MacDonald, which was the Royal Mail pay award or pay offer, neatly highlighted, you'll note all the great things in it. But also after that, I actually received a letter from Aaron Barnes, the managing director of Parcelforce, which highlighted the non-offer in Parcelforce. What that joint statement said was that both of those letters, which were sent to us almost as fait accompli, so effectively, here's the offer, it's non-negotiable, or in Parcelforce's case, is here's your non-offer, and we're not making any improvement on it. The joint statement said that they would be negotiable. So effectively, they were no longer statements of fact. They were the company's position, but they were open to discussion at ACAS. What we also, and we made the point specifically in Parcelforce on the issue of one-to-ones. So what we said is the company should pull back from one-to-ones, and especially in Parcelforce, because we believed, and it was anecdotal, but we believed that the company were about to really press the issue of owner drivers within those one-to-ones, and the company agreed to pull back on those elements. What they didn't say, though, is that they would pull back the whole way, and they would still like to do one-to-ones with regards to what they view as their change initiative, and we'll talk a bit about that, I would think, in the coming minutes. We said we would encourage our members not to attend those one-to-ones, and that remains the case. We do encourage you not to attend. Effectively, in our view, they are propaganda sessions from the company. To be honest, I don't know how you put a shiny gloss on an offer which is zero, but how you sell a change initiative on the back of offering our members, absolutely nothing with regards to pay, but the company still intended to do it. So our overture to you would be politely and refuse to take up the offer of the one-to-one, and make sure that the employer knows that their current position of change for no pay is most certainly not acceptable. Isn't it bizarre, and let's take a second to think about it. Isn't it bizarre that, for months, the narrative from Simon Thompson and others was, the union won't talk about change without pay. There's more pay for more change. There's this, there's that. And yet, at the point that we go back into ACAS, the Parcelforce position is, well, we still want the change, but you ain't getting any pay. I mean, it is frankly despicable. So, be loud, be proud, and kindly refuse the offer of a one-to-one.
Thank you, Davie. Andy's question around the redundancies, Royal Mail's announcement and headline figure of 10,000 redundancies, and saying, are those mainly going to come from Parcelforce employees? So I suppose weary that Royal Mail are going to use that opportunity to, I suppose, if you're looking at 10,000, would be rip apart the Parcelforce company. So his question specifically is mass redundancies going to be happening in Parcelforce?
Well, here's an interesting point, and you know, this is one of these things that is a group-wide dispute, and you know, in answering this, you know, we stray into other areas. I do have to say as well, and I suppose this is not me being evasive. We are in live talks at ACAS just now, so you know, I'm possibly going to be slightly more guarded than I might have been at other times, because I don't want to do anything that makes the talks more difficult tomorrow morning. But on the issue of redundancies, and Royal Mail have been very clear, Royal Mail Group have been very clear on the issue of redundancy. Now, first thing, anywhere in Royal Mail Group, the CW is not going to agree a headline level of redundancies. Redundancy is a byproduct of you know, work. If we have less workload, then we need less people, or we need less hours. If we've got more workload, we need more people. It's a simple equation. So under no circumstances will the union anywhere in Royal Mail say we agree a certain level of redundancy and then work to try and achieve that. Our position would always be, what's the workload? Let's establish the workload, and then once we've done that, then you can then start to establish the amount of hours required to perform that workload, and that then correlates into how many people. The Royal Mail position, I have to say, by and large, doesn't include Parcelforce. So Parcelforce are a separate entity. The discussions largely within the Royal Mail position around that they've highlighted, you know, this is no secret. We're not breaking a confidence here. Simon Thompson's been out on his social media platforms talking about 10,000 or a reduction of 10,000 full-time equivalents. Not all of that, of course, would be redundancy. Some of that would be agency, casual, etc. But he's been very candid about what the companies see as that reduction. As far as we can ascertain, those numbers are pretty much all Royal Mail. The Parcelforce issue is slightly different, but no less aggressive, I would suggest to you. What Parcelforce have said is that and Aaron Barnes wrote to all of you as Parcelforce members on the 22nd of September. Doesn't time fly? Saying that on the day that Simon Thompson wrote to the GS, indicating that the company was serving notice on the protections within the legal contract, Aaron, very quick off the blocks, wrote to you and said, as soon as those protections expire, Parcelforce only want to employ owner drivers. Now, that's not a position I support. It's not a position I believe is consistent with Simon Thompson's letter to the GS, and I have written to Aaron in that regard. With Parcelforce, though, I don't believe, and I could be wrong, something could develop in the talks, but as it stands just now, I don't think Parcelforce are seeking a higher level of redundancies at this stage. What their position would be, though, is that over a period through attrition, they would move towards a gig economy model, and that's not something that we can support. It's not something that we believe is acceptable, and it's not something we're going to agree. So I think it's different. The actual figures that Royal Mail Group have been quoting, I think, are very largely targeted at Royal Mail, but that doesn't mean that Parcelforce are out of the woods. They certainly want to change the resourcing model in Parcelforce, and that's as big an issue in Parcelforce as the, you know, both the redundancy position and indeed the current proposals for reduced terms and conditions across Royal Mail Group. So that's the difference. In Royal Mail, the business want to move to lesser terms and conditions for new starts. In Parcelforce, especially for collection and delivery, well, exclusively for collection and delivery, the business Parcelforce want to move to the gig economy model, which both are equally unacceptable.
Thanks, Davie. Spot on. Good one from here, and it covers up a number of members' concerns, but also gives you the chance to double down on what you were saying in your opening. If he says, if the Royal Mail members are offered an acceptable pay deal and Parcelforce refuse to move from the current no more money stance, what steps can we in the union take to ensure we get a fair pay offer? So some members are saying, like, we're concerned that, I think if they listen to you, I don't think there's a great deal of like for any of our members, but are we as a union going to run off and say, we're cutting you dry and you're shafted? I mean, obviously not, but Davie, your answer.
No, I mean, look, and I have heard this, Chris. I mean, that's why it's important to have these discussions. I think, the first thing to say on the Royal Mail deal, our position is to reject it. And you'll recall, and I think this caused some of the consternation last week. Chris, you were very active in the campaign we had started to mount, where, if you recall, we were going to, and I know you recall, but for the viewers, the position was going to be that we were going to have a consultative ballot on the Royal Mail offer, and our very firm position would have been to reject that offer. And also, you'll recall that the second question was going to be around whether you, as employees of Royal Mail Group, had confidence in the most senior level of management within the company. Now, I know that raised some questions in Parcelforce, because certainly people were saying, and they weren't wrong, we haven't had an offer. So is this campaign now a Royal Mail only campaign? No, it wasn't, and it was never intended to be. The position was we were rejecting the Royal Mail deal on two issues: one, on the quantum; two, on the structure; three, on the levels of unacceptable change on which it was dependent; and four, because it left certain parts of our membership, namely fleet and Parcelforce, high and dry. It basically said, we're willing to make a revised offer, but not for them, and we won't accept that position. And I'll go further on Parcelforce, why we could never accept that position. And I'll reference the letter that came across from Stuart, and I'll also reference the letter that came from Aaron, Chris, because they're equally important. Because within the letter from Stuart MacDonald, under there was two sections. There was section 2, which covered kind of immediate issues, which they said were absolutely non-negotiable. They would have to happen. We would have to agree them for any new pay offer to be there. The second part was their longer term aspirations, and within that was a huge section about synergies between Royal Mail and Parcelforce. And the Royal Mail deal was dependent on us committing to timeline talks to bring them forward. So if you want to sort of talk about doubling down on something that's unacceptable, not only was Royal Mail Group saying, we are now starting to split the business down, we'll make an offer in one part but not in another, and we'll do something different in fleet as well, which I'm sure Carol explained earlier. But actually, part of the funding formula for the Royal Mail deal was changing Parcelforce. But yet, to our Parcelforce members, they were saying, sorry, you ain't part of it, you ain't getting nothing. We are never going to accept that position, and we will never do a deal on pay in Royal Mail, to get out the room or to try and conclude an agreement that leaves Parcelforce high and dry. The change in Parcelforce, and listen, we committed the last agreement, the Pathway to Change agreement, had a section on Parcelforce, and lo and behold, what that section largely said was that we would explore synergies between Royal Mail and Parcelforce. So we were committed to it then, and we won't step back from that now. There's possibly some products in Parcelforce that would be better in Royal Mail. There's possibly some products in Royal Mail that would be better in Parcelforce. There's possibly other things we could do or look at to maximise the benefits to both businesses. But they have to be mutual interest, and they have to bring a reward and a level of reward to every single person involved. So let me assure you, there will not be a deal in Royal Mail that leaves Parcelforce hanging, nor will there be a deal in Royal Mail that leaves fleet hanging. So, you know, if anybody's worried about that, please accept this assurance that this trade union, you know, from the GS down, the postal executive, all of the officers will not do that deal. Whatever we settle on, if we get to a settlement, and we're not there yet, not there by a long chalk, these are very difficult talks, they will have to include an acceptable settlement for Parcelforce. I will say, and this might, and I know I'm trying not to upset people or derail talks, I will say, and people may be shocked by this, you know, we're at day 5 or 6 at ACAS now. Parcelforce haven't attended yet. You know, Parcelforce have not been at these ACAS talks. There has been some peripheral discussions around Parcelforce with senior Royal Mail Group people, but Parcelforce ain't been in the room. But there'll be no deal until, well, whoever comes in the room for Parcelforce or whoever negotiates on behalf of Parcelforce for Royal Mail Group, there'll be no deal in its entirety until there's a deal for Parcelforce.
Thank you, Davie. Brilliant. Louise says, hi, Davie. And a nice one, actually. I trust you 1,000,000%. That's the first thing I want to say. But there's a but.
There's always a but.
But can you please touch on Parcelforce customer services? Slowly but surely will be moved into Royal Mail customer experience, particularly the new call centre at Derren being on Royal Mail grade. So a fear there about, I suppose, the running down of our Parcelforce customer service members.
Well, certainly not the intention. You know, like I have actually been to the customer service unit in Derren, and actually it was quite an interesting visit, because at the time we went there, and myself, Katrina Quirk, Mark Walsh, who was the regional organiser, and the branch, we all attended a session at Derren, because on the Parcelforce operation there, it was pretty much almost 100% a new workforce. So when we attended, almost nobody was a CWU member. So I suppose very unusually, we took the opportunity to arrange a meeting with the business at Derren, and I went out and did a bit of recruiting, you know, which is maybe something we don't, as national officers, we don't get to do all that often, although I did really enjoy the day. Look, we want Parcelforce to have Parcelforce specific skills. So we want the people who are selling for Parcelforce to have Parcelforce skills. We want them to understand the Parcelforce business, the product lines, and have the expertise to be able to supply excellent, you know, sales. Equally for customer service, we want our Parcelforce operatives to have that level of expertise. With regards to the terms and conditions at Derren, you know, yes, I think you're right that they were pitched at the Royal Mail level in Derren, although we do have a range of other sites in Parcelforce that are separate and are different. And of course, we do have quite a lot of the admin function in Parcelforce that is still aligned to the depots. So look, we want the Parcelforce admin functions, the customer experience functions, or customer service functions, to provide the best possible service for Parcelforce and to have the relevant expertise. We don't want to blur the lines with Royal Mail per se, but I think in the case of Derren, there was real economies of scale. It was a Royal Mail site. It was a site that had capacity, and we made use of that as an economy of scale at the time. So it's not necessarily the way forward. I think Derren, in our view, was a specific situation, but you know, we absolutely want Parcelforce to have the best and Parcelforce specific service at every level. But of course, I go back to the point I made in the previous question. There are synergies, you know, where there are synergies that work and work for both parties. It's not about synergies that work for Royal Mail and leave Parcelforce disadvantaged. It's about utilising a synergy where it is truly mutual interest and it produces a benefit for our members, and when I say for our members, by you know, allowing Parcelforce to prosper and therefore providing a level of security for our Parcelforce members in every function.
Thank you, Davie. I know, obviously, you know, historically and right now and in the future, the priority of the union has always been and will always be looking after the members who are going to stay in the business and the future generations who are going to join the business. But quite a few of our members are asking about redundancy from the point of view of, like, you know, they're hearing that Royal Mail are reducing the terms, want to reduce the terms, Parcelforce want to do the same. So basically, a lot of people want to know what does the potential redundancy package look like for them.
Well, I think you know, let's be clear. The CWU's position is that we have an agreement for dealing with the surplus. It's not a redundancy agreement. It's a you know, managing the surplus framework, MTSF, a very long-standing agreement, which has held us in extremely good stead. Now, absolutely, you're right, Chris, and you know, people are picking up on it. It'd be impossible not to. You know, again, Royal Mail goes straight to the workplace with almost every announcement, and they are currently saying, in their view, MTSF is unaffordable. So the company position is twofold, both of which are equally distressing. One are that the terms are they believe are no longer affordable, and two, that they are becoming far more hazy on the issue of compulsory redundancy. So the company have come out with a position of saying they want to reduce the terms, and they wanted the union to discuss the criteria for compulsory redundancy. Now, we are not in the market for compulsory redundancy, and we are, you know, not ostensibly in the market to reduce the terms. There's always a balance. So our position is any discussions on surplus, because I think I said this right at the start of the call. For me, it's never a discussion about redundancy. We would be making a mistake to get into a discussion that was about how many people are going to leave the business and then work back from that. What we always should be doing is determining what the workload is, and workload's down. It's down, you know, the company will say because we've been taking strike action and threatening more. It's also down because of the economic state of the country, the war in Ukraine, etc. But, you know, work goes down, but work will recover. This ain't permanent. You know, there will come a time when the market lifts again. There will come a time when people have disposable income and start purchasing online again, and the company grows again. And the company accept that. In the discussions we've had with them, even over the last couple of days, they accept that this isn't a bottomless pit. The market will pick up again. So we shouldn't be, while we want to make sure that where there is a surplus, we would want people to have the ability to leave the business if they choose to do so with dignity and with you know, a sum of money that reflects the service they've given and allows them to move on comfortably. We equally have to remember that our concentration has to be on the people that stay, because, you know, everything costs money. We want to maximise we want MTSF to remain, but we also want to ensure that that the pay on offer, the terms and conditions on offer for those people who will continue to work for Parcelforce and Royal Mail Group remain and build on what we've got and remain absolutely the best in the market. I don't know why Royal Mail are always wanting to benchmark against the bottom. Well, that would be a lie, wouldn't it? I do know why they want to benchmark against the bottom, because it creates a rationale for reducing. We should be allowed and proud about the fact we are the best in market, because let's be honest, for a lot of the products we deliver, we are the market. So it's a balance. We have got the best terms just now for dealing with surpluses, and we want to try and defend them for as long as we can. If the company take a very draconian position, then we'll want to maximise what we can get. But we do have to have that balance around protecting those that want to go, but absolutely protecting those that want to stay.
Thank you, Davie. Gemma's asking, is this, you know, and similar questions we had in the fleet and engineering session as well, is this a plan to sell off Parcelforce? Is that part of Royal Mail Group's plan, do you think?
It certainly was. It certainly was previously, and we know what happened the last time, didn't we? Because we had, when we did the dispute in 2019-20, that led to the Pathway to Change agreement. We'll remember we went through the whole, mediation around the TUPE issue, separating Parcelforce within group to then move it beyond group. And we knew at the time, actually, it was Simon Thompson and Keith Williams who told us, despite the narrative from the senior Parcelforce management at the time, that it was nothing to worry about. It was just about, giving Parcelforce autonomy. Of course, the plan at that time was to sell Parcelforce. This time, I'm not so sure. This time, I think the attacks, and we maybe need to speak a wee bit about them, Chris. I don't want to, have this session and lose sight of what Parcelforce want to do. But I think the Parcelforce narrative now, Aaron's narrative to me and to you, is we want to move to an owner-driver model. Is also his narrative, which, if any of you have gone into the one-to-ones, and I haven't seen the letter that Parcelforce were intending to use in the one-to-ones, although I have seen the one that Royal Mail wanted to use. But I do know what Aaron's written to me. So not only does he want to carry on with this, drive towards the gig economy, he also wants to pursue the later start times agenda. So he wants to move the network back. His letter to me in August said up to 3 hours. His latest letter is not as explicit as that, but in August it was 3 hours. So if you're on a 7 o'clock start just now, you'd be on a 10 o'clock start, or could be on a 10 o'clock start. Of course, in Parcelforce, that means something different than in Royal Mail, because in Parcelforce, for as long as we collect or deliver and collect together, so our drivers go out and they deliver and they collect. It's the same driver who takes the posted traffic and delivers it, who collects the traffic and brings it back for dispatch into the network. As long as that remains the same, and who knows, Aaron's not been in the room to tell me if he wants to change that, but in August it was the same. And that would mean that you could move the start times later, but you couldn't really move the finish times much later, because you still have to be back in the depot to dispatch the traffic into the network for the next day, which would mean that for a lot of our drivers, and let's be clear, the vast majority of our Parcelforce drivers rely or have built their lives around a level of earnings that includes SA. If you move the start times back, but you don't move the finish times back, then that level of SA and additional earnings becomes threatened. So between the drive for owner drivers, the later start times, the move to 7-day resourcing, the network synergies, because Aaron, at least he's semi-consistent with Royal Mail. He wants to talk about the synergies between Parcelforce and Royal Mail Group. So he wants that. Revised duty structures, he wants to do revisions. He wants allowances is interesting. He wants your allowances. Now in Royal Mail have given us quite a detailed proposal, which was on the Stuart McDonald letter, which talked about, identified all of the allowances that Royal Mail wished to remove and what the buyout options would be. That doesn't mean to say we've agreed that, we haven't, but it was a buyout. Aaron's letter to me was, we are proposing to remove 5 legacies allowances, 3 affecting depot employees, 2 in the Coventry hubs. 2 things are missing from that statement. One, what the allowances are. We're 6 months into these discussions and he still hasn't told me what the specific allowances he wants to remove are. But the other very significant difference is his letter doesn't say that they intend to buy them out. It just says they intend to remove them. And again, that's a significant upping of the ante from the Royal Mail position. And finally, the ill health retirement and sick pay and attendance issues, which are the same as Royal Mail. So reductions in sick pay and reductions in ill health retirement. I wanted to go through them, Chris, because it's a very long way of getting to a short answer. If Parcelforce were to deploy all of those things, would they really need to sell the business? Because effectively, they would have completely changed the employment model. They would have completely destroyed terms and conditions. They would have completely smashed working practices for everybody in Parcelforce, And at that point, what would be the point of selling it? I think they've changed tack. I think they're now saying we keep the company, but we absolutely change the terms and conditions and the employment model. Well, that just ain't acceptable. And, you know, it's beyond unacceptable. So, look, I could go in tomorrow and if somebody's there from Parcelforce, fair enough. If not, Simon Thompson could tell me, aha, today we're going to sell Parcelforce, or that's the latest proposal. It's not been said during these talks, and I have to say, I think the attack's gone. I think what they're absolutely trying to do is change the cost base in Parcelforce to then say it's viable for them to run, but it's not viable for us, and it's not viable for you as employees. So this is the attack in Parcelforce is as extreme as it's ever been, and is probably getting more extreme. But I don't think it's any more about selling the business. I think it's about absolutely fundamentally changing the business. And from our perspective, as a trade union and as Parcelforce members and Parcelforce employees, it's about changing the job in so many unacceptable ways that I suspect most of you would probably say, I can't stay. It won't support my lifestyle. It's not the job I signed up for. It's not the job I've committed years to, you know, and that may be part of the strategy, of course, to actually persuade people just to leave, to just, you know, chuck it and go, because then what do they get? They get more owner drivers. Our position just now has got to be to get back to basics. We've always believed that there's a position for Parcelforce where it can be successful. And you know what? And I'll finish this very long answer on this. 6 months ago, quite a lot of the senior Parcelforce management team agreed with us. You know, Aaron didn't, and quite a lot of that senior management team has changed now. You know, but look, this is about unacceptable change in Parcelforce, and we have to rail against it. We have to hold by our beliefs. We have to champion our beliefs. We have to make sure that the company listens to us, and the only way we do that is by keeping that narrative going. But the attacks in Parcelforce are beyond extreme.
Thank you, Davie. Spot on, buddy, and lots and lots of support for you set out in some detail there, as you said. You know what's at stake. So if you like what Davie's had to say, I've got one more question for him, and then give him a chance to sum up. Simply put, CW and proud in the comments, so we can see that you're still behind the union. Obviously, Parcelforce and Royal Mail Group Management will be watching this session. So CW and proud in the comments now, and I'll get as many of those up on screen. Whilst you do that, I can already see them going up. I'm going to ask David his final question, one that's been asked by quite a few people, is this an attempt by Royal Mail to either end Parcelforce or end Royal Mail doing parcels? Like one or the other, is this an attempt by them to have one place where parcels are done, full stop?
I think that's a more relevant question. Look, and this is a question that builds into what are the fundamentals of this dispute. So if we said, you know, in these group-wide talks, if we said, and I think we've published these, you know, in comms we put out, comms I think you assisted with before one of the previous strike days. There was some Royal Mail Group comms that went out in the GS and DGSP Acton name, and also there was some comms that went out to Parcelforce, and they kind of highlighted what the fundamentals of this dispute were about. You know, so notwithstanding pay, we want a pay rise that would be worthy of your consideration, but we can't accept a levelling down agenda, and that whether that's new terms and conditions in Royal Mail or a move to the gig economy. We can't have the creation of a separate Parcelforce or parcels operation, you know, it's a GLS, you know, type operation within Royal Mail Group. And that's significant because what Royal Mail are doing, or what they're proposing, is to create, and I think people have become familiar with this, the kind of 3-4-6 narrative. So currently, by and large, Royal Mail, who are the biggest parcel delivery company in the UK, and they deliver from 1,250, circa 1,250 delivery offices, letters and parcels together with core, some dedicated parcel routes out with that, and an LAT product from a lesser number of outlets in the afternoon. Parcelforce, we deliver from 54 depots nationally, and it is pretty much a separate and discrete network. What Royal Mail want to do now, though, of course, with the format 3 and 4 items, and for our Parcelforce members, because I know maybe you're not as familiar with the references as perhaps some of the Royal Mail members, format 3 and 4 means bigger than a shoebox, largely. So it's the bigger items in Royal Mail. I know in Parcelforce they're the ones that you love, because they're at the bottom of the scale in Parcelforce. You know, we start at kind of shoebox and finish at cement mixer, where in Royal Mail it kind of starts with a memory stick and kind of finishes with the shoebox, maybe suitcase size tops. But Royal Mail want to open 340 or move the larger items into 346 depots, and then effectively create what would not be all that dissimilar to a Parcelforce style network in the afternoon. And in the afternoon, I do mean in the afternoon, they want to defer the traffic and it would go out later than core in Royal Mail. Now, there's some dangers with that. Late in the day, they also said Parcelforce could be an addition to that 346. Now, that sets some alarm bells ringing. And even the Stuart McDonald letter of last week sets some of those alarm bells ringing, because they then talk about alternative employment models using owner drivers in parts of the network. Stuart McDonald's letter doesn't say Parcelforce, it says in parts of the network. So there are fears that Royal Mail could be looking to move to some kind of parcel, single parcel, large parcel network, and then perhaps again drive towards the gig economy model, and that's not acceptable. We are willing to look at synergies between the two businesses, but what we're not willing to do is embark on the levelling down of the gig economy route, which is clearly where the company want to progress. And you know, look, they say it all the time, you know, oh, how can we compete with Every or Hermes or Yodel or Amazon or DPD, because they either use wholly owner driver models or even lifestyle courier models. We can't have that the start of the slippery slope in Royal Mail Group. We made an agreement in Parcelforce an awful long time ago, which at the time was about saving the Parcelforce as a business. That was around the 25-75 split. That has held us in good stead. Despite what Aaron might think, I don't believe that the company has served notice on that. Of course, much like many national agreements, it doesn't mean they want to adhere to it. So our position would be, we would want to maintain, as a minimum, the current mix in Parcelforce and not escalate that into Royal Mail. We don't want any more owner drivers in Parcelforce, and we don't want any in Royal Mail. We also don't want to use a ruse, that's difficult to say, where Royal Mail would suggest that even branding some of those sites as Parcelforce gave them an in to then argue that they should have owner drivers instead of employees. We've never bought the argument, this 20% argument, or owner drivers are 20% more productive in Parcelforce, because all of you who are watching know it's a nonsense. They don't take out the same workload as you. They kind of cherry pick. Parcelforce prioritise their workload. They let them leave before the last trailer's in. They don't always make them do their collections. If they do their collections, then sometimes we collect their collections to bring it back so they can stay out in delivery. So we think it's a false argument. We believe that we could actually probably put a salient argument up to remove the owner drivers from Parcelforce. So yeah, I think there's dangers in it. I think if we weren't here, if this trade union didn't exist, then let's not kid ourselves. Royal Mail would be looking to move to an owner-driver model, or worse. And Parcelforce, they would have done that years ago. So it's only because we have maintained this fight. It's only because, with not us, you are the trade union. It's only because collectively we've maintained this fight that we've been able to hold this at bay. It's only because we fought the last time that we stopped the company being separated, Parcelforce being separated from Royal Mail Group and then sold. And let's be honest, had it been sold, it would now be an owner-driver based entity. So we have to hold our nerve here. We have to keep our eyes on the prize, and we have to remain true to what we believe, and that is that we shouldn't be, racing to the bottom, trying to match the lowest common denominator. Being a fiver better than Hermes ain't good enough. Whatever Simon says, this mantra, over 40% overpaid, so we want to be 10% better than the worst employer. What kind of message is that? What kind of message is the message that Aaron keeps sending in every communication he writes to you as employees? It's never about, oh, well, you're doing well, but, could you do a bit harder? It's the company's worthless, or you're not efficient, or owner drivers are 20% better than you. Or what was the latest one? The company's got no value, no intrinsic value. Honestly, I've never, talk about losing the dressing room, talk about, an inability to motivate people. It's disgraceful. It is frankly disgraceful. Well, look, I think we'll always treat you with more dignity and more respect than what the company appears to be doing on a daily basis. We want a future for you. We want a future for all of our members delivering parcels, whether that's in Royal Mail or Parcelforce. We want the absolute best mutual interest solution that we can negotiate on your behalf. And that won't be one that moves to an owner-driver model across Royal Mail Group. And it won't be one that moves to a levelling down agenda for terms and conditions. So it's undoubtedly where the company would like to go if we turned our backs, but we ain't going to turn our back. So, this time, more than any other time, we need to stand together, and we need to be telling the employer that what they've got planned for both companies is unacceptable, and they have to rethink it. We're spending these days at ACAS trying to make sure or persuade the company to rethink their agenda, and that's the only way we'll get a deal, because we can't do a deal around the gig economy and we can't do a deal around levelling down. So stick with us.
Thank you, Davie. I'm going to give you obviously quite a bit of roundup in that answer generally into the session, but give you a minute or so just to give your final messages to Parcelforce members ahead of you heading back into those talks, mate.
Yeah, Chris, and it's difficult, isn't it? People have said we don't talk enough about Parcelforce. And then when you do, once we get into detail, it becomes very complex. And
there's tons of praise, by the way.
And I hope we're not turning people off.
No.
We've got it wrong. If everybody said you don't talk enough about Parcelforce, and then say, Christ, I wish you'd shut up.
No,
going into that level of detail, we'll have to try and find a balance. I hope what has come across this afternoon or tonight is the level of attack that our Parcelforce members remain under. I've never known it, and all the time that I've been doing this as an officer, 7 or 8 years, I think, and before that, for 7 or 8 years before that as an executive member, so I think 15, 16 years as an executive member. In that time, I've dealt with a number of managing directors of Parcelforce, operations directors of Parcelforce, all of who at times have said, the quickest, easiest way for the company to improve its balance sheet would be to drive towards the gig economy. We've never accepted that. Well, we've probably accepted, they could make a hole in their balance sheet, but it's never ever been the right thing to do. It's never ever been the best way to differentiate ourselves from the market, to make sure that we deliver quality, that we are delivering parcels to the doorstep and not throwing them over somebody's hedge, that we are absolutely the best in the market, especially in B2B, where Parcelforce has a very good reputation. The best way to do that is not to drive for the lowest common denominator, is to actually work together to get mutual interest outcomes, to make sure that we can compete. And maybe not this week, maybe not next week, but when the economy starts to rebuild and the market starts to grow again, that we're in the position to absolutely grow across Royal Mail Group and in Parcelforce and become and maintain our position as the premium service provider. You don't do that by driving for the bottom. You do that by absolutely maintaining what makes you unique, what makes you the absolute creme de la creme across the parcel industry. Interestingly, when Aaron Barnes first took over the job and spoke to me, he absolutely said to me, he recognised that he recognised that having almost a fully employed workforce, uniformed workforce, dedicated, motivated workforce was something that he could sell against. A year later, 18 months later, he now seems to think, no, the only way to do this is to drive to the bottom. I didn't buy it then. I don't buy it now. Not do you. We have to move the company's position. In certain areas, we've got to move the company's position a fair distance because we're not in the same place. But we are in talks at ACAS. I've tried tonight it's impossible to talk about the position of the company without talking about the position of the company. But, I'm sure they'll all be watching it. I'm sure Simon's watching it. I think Aaron's on leave this week, but I'm sure he's watching. So without being personally disrespectful to him, you need to move your position, mate. You have to get back round the table. You have to negotiate a mutual interest outcome for parcel deliveries in Royal Mail and in Parcelforce that builds on synergies, but absolutely protects your employees, our members in both businesses, that actually allows them to come to work and perform their work with a bit of dignity. And again, with due respect to you, Simon, to you, Aaron, you don't do that by telling people they're rubbish. I don't know what walk of life that works. If it was a football team, a rugby team, any business, if it was a sales team, you don't motivate people or get them to aspire to do better by telling them they're garbage and we would do better with owner drivers. Motivate your people. Explain to them how we can work together to drive this company forward, to improve our levels of service, step away from some of the mistakes of the last couple of years. We've accepted them. Some of this mantra around, the computer's right, and stop talking about how we'll use technology to manage people out of the business so you can replace them with gig economy employees. Let's talk about how we can do it better. Let's talk about how we properly motivate people, make them feel proud to come to work, make them feel proud to work for Parcelforce, make them want to provide the best possible customer service for our posting and receiving customers. You know what? See 5 years ago in Parcelforce, see 10 years ago in Parcelforce, that's exactly what you had. But you can't have that by bullying people, by eroding confidence, by telling them they're rubbish, by telling them the owner drivers are better than them. It just don't work. Let's get back to the table, negotiate a deal. We're at ACAS, we're here to do it. The CW wants a deal, but it's not a deal at any costs. It's a deal that works for our members. To our Parcelforce members, the other side of the coin is this. We are there for a deal. I would dearly love never having to ask you to take another day's industrial action. And if we could get a deal that works for you as employees and as our members, then that'll be the position. But can I guarantee that just now? No, I can't. So we are, what's the old saying? I won't use the Terry one. I'll leave that. That's his catchphrase. We travel in hope, but we prepare for the worst. So we are looking for a deal, but we also have to be preparing for prosecuting our dispute if we can't get there as quickly as we would like to. I'm very hopeful that we can continue to make progress at ACAS, but we can't take our eyes off the fact that the company could walk away, or the company could just say no, in which case we'll remain in dispute. So listen, stick with us. Don't listen to the managerial propaganda. Politely, if they want you to do a one-to-one, and I do mean politely, I don't want people, getting into spats in the workplace. Just say no. Keep listening to your rep. Keep talking to your rep. Keep listening to the comms that we put out, and we will try to make sure that there's not a Parcelforce deficit again. And let's, make sure that we are as best prepared as we can be for either option. But I will say again, the CWU's absolute priority is to get a deal, and we're ready to negotiate a proper deal when the company is ready to do so. But the company has to move position to get in that position.
Thank you, Davie. So I should say, let you know, because obviously you're just staring into the camera, that the comments have been brilliant tonight, and loads of people saying thank you, both for the session, but also for taking the time to come on and engage the Parcelforce members. So thank you to you, buddy, giving up your time. I know you had a long day in the talks, and you're back in tomorrow. More important than even though Davie, though, is all you members and reps who have come on. We want to thank you for the fantastic work you're doing and you continue to do. We're going to get you updates as and when we have them. If we need you to take action, we want to need you to get out there and support that action. The main thing is you keep that pressure up and that fantastic work that you're all doing in the workplace, and we'll communicate with you, as Davie said, as much as we possibly can. Take it easy, everyone.